Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Monday evening to you all. I hope you guys had an awesome day and a great start to your work week. I got you an update tonight talking about that big time cold front that I've been mentioning over the last few days that likely will work its way over most of the eastern U.S. come this weekend. This is probably going to be the strongest cold front of the season, of the fall season. I got to make sure I don't say of the year because obviously we already had a January and February and March of this year. So definitely not of the year, but of the fall 2022 season. So it's not necessarily going to be just overall bitterly cold. I'm not talking about that. But as far as low temperatures, certain areas could see their coldest temperatures of the season. So we're going to talk about that. We'll give you a brief update out there on the tropics too and take a look at 91L. But we're not going to talk that to death. There's no point in doing that because I'm not seeing anything concerning as of right now. But that is a very sensitive topic that things could turn around really quickly. And I talked about that, I believe, in last night's video about how models just aren't really liking the idea of development. But if you look at the environment ahead of it, it tells a little bit of a different story. But we'll talk about that when it's needed. So let's talk about this big time cold cool down as we get into this coming weekend. If you guys have not subscribed, hit that subscribe button for me. Like the video if you like it. Growth in these slower times definitely helps, so I really appreciate people who continue to tune in. I remember October of last year was really, really slow. I think November was too. And I can tell you guys, I got a lot of things coming up. I got a camping trip coming up in a couple weeks, and I take another trip in the first weekend of November to Gatlinburg. Then I take another trip to Thanksgiving. So very exciting times, but very, very active times. So I'll make a video about that, just talking about the game plan going ahead through the rest of the year, probably sometime this week. But if you guys got anything that I can pray about, pray over, please put it in the comments below. It gives me an opportunity to pray over it, and it gives others an opportunity to do so too. Let's get rolling here. 6 to 10 day outlook. Of course, this actually stretches over a span that's kind of past this big time cold front. So this big time cold front's coming this weekend, which is a couple days before this actual date time frame. What it kind of goes into that time frame, but not spanning the entire area. But anyways, this is talking about the 9th through the 13th. So if you're wondering why there's kind of not as below normal temperatures predicted as maybe the last graphic I showed you guys, it's because we're getting later in the time frame. So confidence is beginning to just level off at, what kind of pattern we're going to have towards the middle part of the month, which is still, 10 to 12, 13 days from now. So here we go. Below average temperatures is still expected. I mean, this is from, central Tennessee, Kentucky, the areas of the Ohio Valley, points east and northeast. So Carolinas, mid-Atlantic, northeast, still below average temperatures predicted. 8 to 14 day range. This takes us all the way through the 17th, the 11th through the 17th. Below average temperatures still predicted, but you can tell, it's not as high as a chance because we're starting to get a little bit deeper into October in these little outlooks. So the confidence is decreasing on what the pattern will be way on out here as we start to inch to that third week of October. So, but I can tell you, there's a big time cold front coming. So what we're going to do is we're going to start this off by this coming Thursday. So this Thursday of this week. As you can tell, highs already warming up to near 90 degrees in Arkansas, areas of eastern Texas. A warm up. So if you like warm weather and you're not quite ready for winter or that fall chill, certainly go outside and enjoy it. If you're in areas of the Mississippi Valley, the South, even all the way up to Maine. You guys, I think, woke up this morning or the morning before to temperatures in the 20s. And I'm actually going to show you a fall foliage picture out of Maine. It's an awesome thing that the National Weather Service out of Caribou does in Maine. Every single year they take a picture at a lake called Hansen Lake, I believe, or Lake Hansen in Maine, and they compare it on the 2nd of October, I believe, every year on what the fall foliage looks like for that date. And they've been doing it for about 10 years now. So stay tuned. I'm going to show you that because it's always very interesting to see how fall foliage is different year to year. Is it behind? Is it ahead? Is it right on average? So we're going to talk a little bit about that and talk a little bit more on that as we get going here in the next few days and get a little bit deeper into fall. But we'll start this off Thursday afternoon, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know where kind of a boundary is of where the cooler area is and the warmer area is. For example, Thursday, you got highs and maybe just only in the 30s in northern Wisconsin, the PD of Michigan, and areas of northeast Minnesota. You keep this going here, this is potential high temperatures for Friday. Notice these areas in Missouri, even in Arkansas, that were deep into the 80s, now only, for example, in Missouri, now only highs in the 50s and 60s. And then you got one last warm day across the deep south. So if you like warm weather, enjoy Friday. I know that, it's been kind of chilly during the day, even here in South Carolina. So, I don't mind a warm day. I'm definitely more of a fan of cooler weather than hot weather if I had to choose either one. But if you like the warm weather, the warm feeling of the sun, certainly enjoy Thursday and Friday across the south, because here comes this cold front. And look at this. Look at this gradient between Pennsylvania and New York State. For example, New York City could be warming into the 70s Friday, but Buffalo, New York could only be locked in the 40s. So the cold front's going to be cutting through this part of the country. So enjoy the weather Friday. I think it's confidence is pretty on up there that we're going to have a pretty warm day Friday across areas of the mid-Atlantic, especially closer to the coastal regions, the Carolinas, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Mississippi, down all the way to Texas. But we get into Saturday morning, suddenly you're waking up to chilly weather, and look at this. Widespread freezing conditions in Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio. I mean, you're below freezing. I think this will be your first sub-freezing temperatures of the fall for a lot of people. Even outside of mountainous areas, Ohio Valley can be quite chilly. In fact, I think the core of the coldest weather will probably be in this area, with basically the orientation of how the cold front is digging. But this is heading right towards the southeast, so you got highs and deep into the 80s, close to 90 for certain areas in the south Friday. Saturday, football and everything like that across the south and across everywhere. Saturday highs maybe only in the 60s. In the 60s and 70s, and think this isn't going to be due to cloud cover. This will be beautiful weather, bright blue skies, and just a crisp fall day without all the kind of just depressing cloud cover. It's not necessarily depressing to me. I like a good cloudy fall day, but too many of them in a row and you're just ready to see some sun, right? So I think this coming Saturday, this weekend, is going to be a chilly entire weekend for most of the eastern U.S. And then we get into, Sunday morning. I think it'll be the coolest morning overall for areas of the south that we've seen this year. Look at all these widespread 30s. I think areas will see the 20s in the mountains, and I really think this will kickstart even more the fall foliage. And I can tell you, from the pictures that I'm seeing, even in the southern Appalachian Mountains, for the fall colors are right on track. It's hard to say they're ahead of schedule, but they are right on track. They're certainly not behind this year like we've seen over the last several years. And we have just had a normal fall, even here in the South. It's been a nice fall. I put on my social media that this fall has been the best, I would say, start to fall that I've seen since actively tracking weather. And, I'll be 31 next week. And, I say that I've been nerding out over weather probably for the last, I would say, 10 to 15 years. And I just do not remember a fall this nice. Maybe you guys can comment in the comments if you remember, especially for my folks in the South, if you remember a start to fall that being this nice. Someone mentioned 2009, which if you remember 2009, you live in the South. 2009, 2010 winter in the South was a very wintry winter. So I'm not somebody who says there's a correlation between a cold fall to a cold winter. I don't say that, but you never know. We certainly need to watch. But a beautiful day this coming Sunday. And then the European and the GFS kind of like the idea of another cold front showing up in the long range. But that's pretty far out. It really is. So I'm going to tell you guys, I don't think we're done with widespread 80s. I think we might get another period of warmer weather outside of what we'll see Thursday and Friday. It's hard to just say we're completely done with widespread 80s and even a 90-degree day. But I can tell you, this is a really nice start to fall. Let's take a look at the European. We'll go through this a little bit quicker. European shows the same thing. Friday, a warm day across the south. Certain areas will hit 90 degrees in the deep south in Texas, Louisiana. Probably certain areas in the Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. And then here comes the cold front, only in the 60s, only in the 50s in the Ohio Valley. And then we'll go on and move into Saturday morning. I can tell you the European's not quite as chilly. But as far as daytime temperatures, about the same. It just doesn't dig this trough as much as the GFS. So we'll have to see if the GFS of the European is a little bit more correct as far as how chilly it'll be as far as daytime temperatures Saturday. But both models want to say a pretty chilly morning Sunday morning across the entire eastern U.S. And even some cooler air gets all the way down to the western peninsula of Florida, all the way down to Tampa Bay. So that's always good for you folks. I know you guys are still recovering, that's for sure. But, the Europeans shows another cold front digging. This looks like a big one, a more kind of U.S. cross-clearing cold front. But like I said, that's pretty far out, so it's hard to weigh confidence on that right now. But I can tell you this weekend, more than likely, the strongest cold front of the year. Now, temperatures compared to the average, I can tell you, it's going to be below average much of the week for the eastern U.S. The blues you see, especially the purples, that's, 5 to as much as 10 degrees below average. And then you'll have a brief warm up ahead of the front. So you'll have one day ahead of this big time blast of cold air that warms well below average all the way up to Maine across the entire I-95 corridor, basically. And then this next cold blast moves through, and then it below average temperatures throughout the entire weekend. It's really nice to see. So there's no sustained warmth, really. But we might warm up again next week. So it's just fall. It's the changing of the seasons. It happens. Let's talk about that snow chance here. I really think as we get into Saturday morning, maybe overnight Friday and a Saturday morning, this coming Friday and a Saturday, we could have some snow showers in areas of the Adirondacks in New York State. Vermont, New Hampshire, I do think we'll have some snow showers in some of the higher elevations. I really do. I think we might get some pictures come through that show a dusting of snow in certain areas. I would not be surprised one bit. So don't be shocked. I always love seeing the snow mixed with the fall foliage. That's something I've always wanted to actually witness myself. I got to witness it a little bit when I actually went to Gatlinburg last November, and it actually snowed when we were going, what road is that? But it's basically the road that takes you from Cherokee to Gatlinburg here in North Carolina, and it snowed that first week in November. It was awesome seeing the transition. It really just kind of juiced up the trip, if you will, but it set the mood, if that's what I'm saying. But I really think we'll see some snow showers in the interior Northeast and the higher elevations. One thing I want to show you guys is the National Weather Service out of Caribou. And they take this same picture from Hanson Lake. This is basically just south of Caribou, Maine, way, way up there. They take this same picture every year. And you notice, what I want to try to kind of relate this to winter is I can tell you guys, for example, 2013 fall ended up being a big time, a really cold winter for the entire eastern U.S. in general. So, I don't know if that says anything for basically the entire winter for everybody in the eastern U.S., including us in the southeast. But I can tell you, I know most people remember in the southeast the 2014 January snowstorm and the 2014 February winter storm. So as you can tell, the fall colors down here up in Maine are already past peak that year for October 2nd. There's no great correlation between the 2012 and 2013 winter. There really isn't. But there was some big snowstorms in 2013. But look at 2015. The fall colors hadn't even started this year. So it tells you, look at the big differences of each year. It's just something crazy to watch here. But I can tell you this year, from what it looks like on this picture that they took yesterday on this lake, it looks like fall colors are right on track. It looks like they're peaking right now. I would say 2020 was probably past peak. Looks like maybe even a storm came through and stripped all their leaves down. I don't remember what happened around that time last year. But, it's crazy watching year to year. And it just goes to show you, it's not just up here in Maine either, guys. Really, it's anywhere. It's so much different year to year. That's why, I remember one year, me and my wife, we planned a trip to Gatlinburg, I think around the October 16th, the 18th time frame. And we were just thinking, just because it was the third week of October, that, the fall colors were going to be phenomenal. Man, it was still green, and we were a little bit disappointed, but there's so many ways you can keep track of what the fall colors are doing and planning your trip accordingly. And I know that's something me and my family have made a tradition of, is always checking out the fall colors. I love it. But anyways, temperatures compared to average, another way you can look at this from the GFS. Look at this. We're getting into Sunday morning. You got temperatures, 15 to 20 degrees below average. And areas of Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, Ohio. So it's going to be quite chilly compared to average this weekend. So just going to prepare for it. I think we'll have our first freeze for a lot of people in the Ohio Valley, and even a frost potentially in the Mid-South. We'll take a look at 91L. It doesn't look any better than it did yesterday, I can tell you that, but this is going to bring some showers, gusty winds to the Windward Islands over the next 48 hours. And the models are just still not really latching on to the idea of this really developing. We can look at the GFS, see if it's showing anything. And here we go, getting into this weekend. There's just nothing popping up from the models. But I can tell you the environment down here is very moist. And then the wind pattern aloft is very supportive for tropical development. It's just if anything actually gets going or not. You see a little low pressure fly around right here, but that's not from 91L. So models just do not like the idea of this developing, and maybe that's because the short-term environment, the short-term life of what's going on, and it not sustaining convection might limit its future. So we'll continue to monitor and check everything out, guys. But that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and I'll have you an update in the morning.